Thunder rolled distantly as I stood backstage fiddling with my note cards. Sweat slicked the skin beneath my pressed shirt. Every jury member's stern face loomed in my mind, shoulders hunched close like crows waiting for something to fail. My hands trembled when I touched the waistband of my skirt. I watched the other candidates, smooth, poised, ready to launch into their polished stories for the panel from El País. None of them looked ready to bolt. My name was called. The mic clicked. My shoes tapped out the rhythm of my dread across the stage. I'd worked on my story about the corruption in the city's affordable housing program for weeks, chasing leads, calling sources, digging through municipal records until my eyes ached. I'd uncovered a knot of bribes and favors, things I'd barely understood but sensed mattered. But it was different with these people staring at me, eyes sharp, ready to cut down whatever weakness they found. I opened my mouth. The notes blurred. Words fell apart before forming sentences. I tried to shape them anything, just to keep the silence from growing. The city. My voice cracked. Desperate. I started reading, not speaking, just dryly reading my notes, voice moving in jolts. I saw a juror's eyebrow lift, another shifting in her chair, a giggle. Then, from the seats behind the judges, some young hopeful, arms crossed, wore an amused twist at his smile. He didn't hide his whisper. She's choking. I pressed on, but I could feel it slipping. The last quote came out mangled, the source's name twisted. I stopped. I apologized. And then, without meaning to, I dropped the cards. They scattered, flipping across the stage. I watched from somewhere outside myself, too empty to catch them. "You're out of time," the chief judge said. His voice clipped. I stared, wanting just another 30 seconds. Another chance. Someone snickered in the audience. My heart thudded hard, once, twice. The lines of their faces blurred. I curtsied mechanically and walked off stage. All over the world seemed to be watching. But the only pair of eyes that mattered belonged to my mother, her lips pressed in, and my uncle, arms folded, sitting a few rows behind her. He'd said it that morning, just loud enough for me to hear. "A journalist? That's not a real job, Lucia. Maybe you'll get it out of your system now." Outside, the Madrid air cut cold against my shame. If I could paint the rest of that year, I'd use only the colors of humiliation. All anyone spoke about, when they bothered to look at me, was what happened at the competition. El fallo del recital, they called it, the recital meltdown. When I visited my mother's apartment in La Latina, I heard my younger cousin Diego muttering the phrase, mimicking my shaky voice for laughs. At our family dinners, my uncle never missed a chance. "Lucia, write the menu for us today," he'd announce, grinning at his wife. She's the famous writer after all. Only my younger sister, Isabel, whispered support when the others weren't listening. But she was 16, her hands always shadowed with graphite from sketching, and even she looked away after a while, trying to save us both from embarrassment. My father, long gone to Valencia, sent an email. "Maybe you'll find something more stable. Come work warehouses," he offered. He meant well. Everyone did. I turned inward. Madrid felt unfamiliar, too bright, too loud. I drifted from job to job, proofreading, waitressing, call center work. Sometimes I'd wander to Puerta del Sol on my lunch break, watching tourists feed pigeons, wondering whether anyone here remembered the girl who failed on stage. But the old longing returned, impossible to stamp out. The city pulsed with stories. I saw them everywhere, in faces pressed to bus windows, in the lines of graffiti under Estación del Norte. I lingered in newsrooms on my days off. I read everything I could, taught myself how to work a recorder properly, spent hours in city archives. It was ridiculous, according to everyone. But I found a kind of steel in their rejection, a need to make my words land someday, somewhere not filled with mockery. My break came in the least glamorous spot in Madrid. An aging social housing tower in Vallecas, where my friend Marta lived, 3 floors under leaking pipes and a tangle of extension cords. She'd phoned me one morning, urgent. "There's something with the maintenance contracts," she said. "No heat for weeks, but the city's reports say everything's fine." I took the number 11 bus out at dusk, notebook in hand. Something about the way the elevator creaked, like it had secrets, made me feel alive. I at residents, listened to their stories. Their children slept in coats while a contractor's van idled outside doing nothing. I learned to ask questions. I recorded, transcribed, cross-referenced. Marta hesitated when I told her my plan to publish something. "You don't even have a press badge." "This is the story that matters," I said. "The story that counts." It took months-long, grinding months. Every freelance magazine in the city rejected my pitches. Not enough experience, too niche, not our style. I kept at it, rewriting for different editors, adding more evidence, learning to source documents myself. My uncle found out at some point that I was spending weekends on interviews instead of looking for a real office job. His laughter rolled through Sunday lunch like thunder, echoing my old shame. Then, finally, a scrappy investigative site called Foco agreed to run my story. Small audience, small money, but I felt finally, that I could see the world with unsmudged glass. The article hit a nerve. Residents wrote in, then other journalists. My inbox, long a dead zone of rejection, filled. "Follow up with this official," one wrote. "I think you're onto something." I worked nights after my regular shift, piecing together a follow-up. I learned to trace money trails. I filed public records requests, discovered a pattern. City inspectors who never visited in person. Contracts awarded to friends of friends. By the time my 3rd story broke, 10 months after the first, the city had opened a formal investigation. A local politician retweeted my article with a photo of her standing in front of a broken radiator. I didn't see my family for weeks. They noticed my byline before they noticed me. At my cousin Diego's 17th birthday, my aunt pushed me into the kitchen while a cake cooled on the counter. "I saw you on TV," she said, almost grudging. "That was your report. See?" I shrugged, feeling the crisp lining of my jacket, an old skirt made new by the way I stood. Diego wandered in, avoiding my eyes. "People at my school said you're like trending," he muttered, half admiring. But it was my uncle, old, unimpressed, arms folded, who kept quiet. Not long after, Foco offered me a full contract. I chipped at bigger stories, the black market for affordable meds, the shady deals behind city festival organizers, the false friends in the world of official charity. I learned that tenderness wasn't weakness. I was kind to my sources, gentle in approach, but I never let anyone spin me soft. Some days I still felt the old ache where shame lingered, like a healed wound twinging in the cold. But I pressed on, learning the city's currents, earning respect in small increments. I saved each email from a reader or editor who saw value in my work. Their belief filled a space in me that had been hollowed out backstage all those years ago. I was 30 when the turning point came. A tip arrived late one June evening, a whistleblower with proof of systematic fraud in Madrid's transportation authority. I met her in a cafe in Lavapiés, her face drawn tight with worry. Over a chipped coffee mug, she slid me an envelope containing internal contracts, travel records, bribes disguised as consulting fees. We spoke softly, but every detail felt like thunder in my chest. The reporting took nearly a year. I learned what it meant to struggle and endure. Sources stopped answering. Officials threatened to sue. Once, I came home to a threatening note tucked in my mailbox. I didn't tell my family. I steeled myself, doubled every check, made my stories tighter, evidence unassailable. Finally, the series broke in El País and Foco simultaneously. with my name above the fold, a photo under the banner. The fallout was swift and public. Resignations, court cases, a cascade of reforms. One morning, while walking along Gran Via, I saw my face in the window of a newsstand, next to the headline, Una periodista madrileña desenmascara la corrupción